retro games fans, this is Andy C from Pieces of 8-Bit. Welcome to this week's video. In fact, welcome to one of this week's videos. So you lucky people get two videos this week. I didn't want to try and do it all in one because it didn't make any sense, and obviously you'll hear very much me say the same thing on the other video I've also published this week. This week's video is all about running Homebrew on the PSP, and the other video is all about running emulation for the PSP. So two similar related topics, but I wanted to do them in two videos so that you can watch the one that is most applicable to you. So this video in particular, I'm going to be talking to you about how in 2025 you can get Homebrew running on your PSP once again. This was a big deal when the PSP came out, and I was a huge fan of the Homebrew stuff despite Sony's efforts to try and put the kibosh on it. So that is what I'm going to be talking to you about today. It is incredibly easy to do, actually, as it happens in 2025, and you can do it in a permanent way or you can do it in a temporary way, which is the approach that I will take, and I will show you how to do both. I'll also show you how to run some applications on there as well. It's all very straightforward. So yeah, I probably won't talk to you for too much longer, but yeah, let's dive into the detail and I will tell you how to get PSP Homebrew working once more. See you on the other side. One thing that was really big in the PSP community, pretty much from when it launched, was the concept of jailbreaking it and using it for Homebrew. There was a really big Homebrew community and I made really good use of it. I took some games that I absolutely loved, games that I played in the 90s, and I was able to emulate them through the Homebrew community on the PSP. And it was also really quite a good little device for a whole bunch of things. There was apps and new indie games and all that kind of thing. It was a really great thing. Now, Sony tried to stay ahead of this for a long time, and you'd get a new update, a firmware update, and that would be the end of your Homebrew journey for a little while until the next Homebrew jailbreak would come out. One of the most famous ones, in fact, actually was Weird Liberty City, and you could fiddle about with the game saves and get the Homebrew working that way. So there were lots of ways to get around it. Nowadays, it's very straightforward, and that's what I'm going to talk through with you today. So first of all, we're going to need to go to PSP or pspunk.com, and we're going to look for something called ARC4 custom firmware. So I'll pop the links in the description, but this is where you're going to want to go. And the first things you're going to need to do is make sure that you are up to date with your firmware. So you're going to need to make sure that you are at 6.6 or 6.61. So I'm just going to quickly show you now how you can find that piece of information out. It is very straightforward. So let's dive across onto the PSP, which I've got hooked up. So if we go into our settings here, we can scroll down all the way to our system settings. Where's it gone? There it is. Click into system settings, and across here, if we scroll all the way down to the bottom and go to system information, which is one from the bottom there, it will tell us what our system software version is, and that is 6.60. And yeah, that is good to go. Okay, so now we've checked our firmware, we are hopefully good to go. It is easy enough to update it if you wish. So if you go to the PSP firmware guide up here, you can get to the updating the PSP to update to 6.6 or 6.61 if you're on a lower firmware. So obviously you can go ahead and do that. And also we're in the correct page here for actually downloading the ARC4 software itself. You will see other downloads scattered around. Some of those are adverts, so just keep an eye open for that. So we are going to go ahead now and just download the ARC4 Rev 196. Obviously that may change by the time you're watching this video. We're going to download that, and we're good to go for our download. The next is you're going to need a decent sized memory card to work with. The PlayStation Portable takes something called a Memory Stick Pro Duo. You can get a little adapter for that, and you can plug a micro SD into that. So what you want to look for is a Memory Stick Pro Duo micro SD adapter, and then you want to get yourself a reasonably sized micro SD card to go in there. I've got a 32 gig one. I could get quite a lot on there. You could put anything 64, 128 will all work on there. Pop that into your PSP and get that formatted. And if you're struggling to get that formatted on the PSP, which you may just do, have a go at formatting it on your Mac or your PC to just standard FAT format. and you should be good to go. But if the PSP asks to format it, let it do it. I'm using a memory card that's already formatted, so I shouldn't need to do anything with that. I should be good to go. There are two ways of getting your files onto your PSP that you're going to need. The first is that you can use a USB connection. So I've just plugged in a USB mini connection, and you can see here now on the PSP that I've now got a USB connection which has appeared. If you're having problems getting that connected, what you can do, if you go to down here a little bit, go to your system settings, if I can find it. Where is it? System settings. And you'll notice you've got USB Auto Connect, which you want turned on, and USB Charge, which you won't want turned off. And if we go to our USB connection, that should now connect. It may not connect, my computer may not trust it, so I may get an error message. But that's okay, because I'm not going to use this method anyway. I'm going to use the microSD directly in my PC. That's just a little bit easier. So what if this works, which it looks like it's not going to, but if this works, what will happen is your PSP will appear as a drive on your PC and Mac, and then obviously you can just transfer the files directly to that over USB, which is nice and easy. I actually prefer just taking the SD card out of the microSD adapter, plugging it straight into my PC and transferring the files that way. Alright, so we've downloaded our files, we've unpacked the zip file that came down, and you can now see what we've got here. So let me just fold that up there so we can just get a better view. Let's fold this up here so we can get a better view. So down here at the bottom here is our memory card for the PSP. And up here is the ARC4 file solutions, and we are looking at this folder here, ARC01234. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that and we're going to copy that to our PSP save data folder. So there we go, that is there. So we're just going to drop that over there into the save data folder. Okay, and what we're going to then do is we're going to take the ARC loader folder and we are going to copy that into, so we fold that back up there, and we just scroll down here, PSP, we don't actually have a game folder here by the looks of it, so we're just going to create a game folder. So let's create a new folder, let's do it up here, new folder. That game. Now this might be, I haven't had a lot on here on the PSP, so this is probably due to the fact that I don't have any games installed. I've only been playing stuff off my UMD discs, so that will almost certainly be why that's there. So if you don't have that folder, create that folder. Then we're going to take ARC loader and we're going to drop it into the folder there, so that should be there. There we go. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the PSP memory card, or disconnect our USB, and there will now be on the PSP a new folder called, a new application called ARC Loader. So let's hop over to the PSP and let's have a look at that and see what the next steps are. Okay, right, now we're almost at the end of the installation process, at least for a temporary one. So if we go now back onto our PSP and we come across here to our memory stick. Now, one thing just to bear in mind if you were watching the previous step there, what you'll have noticed is that I copied the game folder into the save data folder. That was incorrect. That wasn't intentional, that was by mistake. So you want to make sure you copy that game folder. If you haven't created it before, that game folder needs to be under PSP, it needs to be at the top there, and then next to the save data one, basically, not in it. If we then go onto our memory stick and go across to game, click on memory stick, and we can now see the ARC loader there. So we're going to click on that, and whilst that's loading, what this is going to do is it's going to install a temporary custom firmware on the PSP. So we'll see that in a second once it's done. And we can leave it on here, and we can leave it temporary, which means that if we want to use the ARC loader in the future, when we've reset the PSP, we'll have to go back and start that again, which, to be honest with you, is probably what I'm going to do for the most part. I'm not sure whether I'm going to go ahead and whether I'm going to make it permanent or not, but I will walk through the steps on that with you in a moment. So if we scroll across here now, go down to system settings again, go to system information, and there you go. You can see 6.60 Arc-4 Live as the system software version, and that means that that is now ready to play custom games. So essentially that is it. At this point you can load up your ISOs, so you can pop your ISOs on your memory stick. I will show you how to do that in a moment, but that is essentially, if you just want it temporary, you are pretty much good to go at this point. If you'd like to make it permanent, what you can now do is you can follow these additional next steps to get it set so that it's permanently set up on your PSP. So every time you start your PSP, it will be installed and ready to go. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to make this installation of the custom firmware more permanent. So to do that, we go back to our Arc4 folder that we unzipped earlier, and under PSP we've got a folder here called Arc CIPL. So this is our downloads folder. Over here we've got our memory card from the PSP, which is called boot, and we have got the game folder selected. So if we go back up, you can see where that is. So if we go all the way up, PSP, game, Arc loader is already in there, so that's the temporary one. The permanent one is here under Arc CIPL. So we're just going to drag and drop that onto there, and that is it for that. So we'll go back over to the PSP in a moment and install that. Okay, so next up we're going to have a look at putting some software on here, and we can obviously have a go with that later to see our Homebrew fully working. So first thing we're going to try is our SNES emulator. So we've managed to find a SNES emulator called SNES 9X Euphoria. If you go out onto the web and search for Homebrew, and in fact if you go to the PS Punk website and go into the emulators section from the drop down menu at the top, you will find a number of emulators in there, one of which is the SNES one. I did have a go with the Genesis one, the Mega Drive one, but I couldn't get that to work for some reason, so I need to do a bit of tinkering with that. So we're just going to try the SNES one now as well. So same as before, well actually no, we don't want to do that. We've got a SNES 9X Euphoria .7Z that came down, that unpacked, and we've got two here. So we're going to go for this one here, which is the R5 Beta 3 signed version. I'm going to grab hold of that unpacked folder, and we're just going to drop it over here onto our memory card. So what we're now also going to do is we're going to grab some ROMs. So if we go into here, we've got a ROMs folder there, and I have got some ROMs sitting off screen. There we go. Let's just grab a few ROMs here. So just some random ones. All right, and we're going to eject that folder, and we're going to go back over to the PSP. Back on the PSP screen here, we're going to scroll across to our game section. So you see all the usual things in here. We're going to click in memory stick. And you can see here now, alongside the Arc loader, which is what we need to run. If you remember, this is if we want to run it temporarily. We click the Arc loader, it loads it into memory, updates the firmware temporarily, and allows us to run some of that Homebrew without having it permanently set onto our PSP. Now, for me, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not looking to make this permanent on the PSP. I'm quite happy with the way that the Sony interface works out of the box, so I like the idea that I can just click and run this utility, and then run any Homebrew software if I choose to run it, and knowing full well that I can't obviously do some of the customizations that come with the permanent fix, and I also know that I will need to run this every time I restart the PSP. I am totally cool with that. Okay, so what I've got here is another application now called the CIPL Flasher, which is what we installed in the previous step, and essentially all you've got to do now is run this, and that will make the firmware set up permanent on your PSP. So if you want to do that, absolutely you can do that, and you can of course use the uninstall utility to remove this later on if you so choose. For me, I'm going to stick with temporary, so I'm not going to run this right now, but that is all you need to do to get that up and running permanently. Okay, and in the final little step here, what we're going to do now is we're going to look at this thing here, which is the SNES 9X Euphoria application. So this is an emulator. We installed this in our games folder alongside some of the other bits and pieces as well. And we're just going to click and run this, and we're going to try and start a game, a SNES game on our PSP. So click on that, get that running. All right, here we go. And here's some of the games that we included in the start. So we're just going to click on Cannon Fodder. This is Cannon Fodder. Looking fabulous. And I am playing this on my PSP, which is fantastic. So this is the SNES version of Cannon Fodder on my PSP. It's a shame I couldn't get the Mega Drive version to work, the Genesis version to work, but that's absolutely fine. This will do me nicely. So there you go. That is the SNES emulator running, and that was very, very easy to install as well. And there we go, you can see it working here. And actually, I can use the analog stick, although that might prove to be a little on the tricky side. So there you go, that's Cannon Fodder running on my PSP through the SNES emulator, and it was very, very easy to set up indeed. Here we go. Oh, I want to play this now. Oh, it's a little bit fiddly. It's mainly just my ineptitude. I think I've already lost a soldier, have I? No, not yet. Alright, there we go. Alright, let's go back and wrap up. Hopefully that was all very useful for you. Mission complete. Good time to finish. So there you have it. Hopefully you found that useful. I think that's really easy to do. I mean, especially now with the ability to be able to put the micro SD card into your PC, that is obviously exceptionally useful. I did find that I was transferring it backwards and forwards, trying to get things to work. Did have a few little problems along the way. I couldn't get the Mega Drive emulator to work, for instance, which is why you saw the SNES one working there. That worked very, very well. That was very easy. Got that going as well. But I think I probably will have a look at a few other things for Homebrew. The thing is, I guess nowadays it is more of a novelty to be able to do it. I'm not sure how much I will really use it. I've got so many ways of playing games now, so many different platforms. We've had Raspberry Pi come out since the PSP, of course. And so there's lots and lots and lots of ways of getting back into emulation, playing indie games. So really, you know, I can't see me using the Homebrew stuff on the PSP loads and loads and loads, not least because I just have many other ways of doing it, which is why I haven't installed it permanently. I didn't want to risk anything on my PSP, and I like it to be kind of how nature intended. I am going to have a look and see what is possible with the Vita when we eventually get around to having a look at that, maybe in a little while's time. But for now, hopefully you found that really, really useful. So there you go. That is it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. In terms of stuff that's coming up, so next week will be the final week of my PSP. So at the end of next week, you will see the month with review of the PSP. Obviously, go back and check out some of the other videos. I did a block one a few weeks back where we looked at some of the best block puzzle games across the handhelds, and I've also looked at Grand Theft Auto, Vice City Stories, and Liberty City Stories on the PSP as well, which I really enjoyed going back and revisiting. So it has been really good fun, and we will of course be revealing what is coming up next month as well. So there you go, that is it for this one, and yeah, go check out the emulation one as well from this week if you're interested in looking at PSP emulation. That is available now also, so go check that out. Otherwise, that just leaves me to say please do all take care of yourselves. Oh yes, also I didn't even say it. If you enjoy these videos, please do hit that like and subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. So yes, as I was saying, please do take care of yourselves. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.